Before our trip even started, a solar eclipse happened in Canada, and that was where we were flying out of. This is a big deal because it's the longest totality on land in over 10 years. In London, there are the Churchill War Rooms. This museum was the home of Winston Churchill and the headquarters to the British Army during the bombings of London in World War II. D-Day was even planned here. This place is rich with history, and I highly recommend. For starters, in Normandy, we visited Omaha Beach. This was the bloodiest beach in Normandy. We then went to the American cemetery that was shown in Saving Private Ryan. 9,388 soldiers were buried here. I also found out that the parents of the soldiers who were killed got to choose whether or not they wanted their son to be buried here or in the US. Yeah, and our voices are in the sound. Next on our list was Pointe du Hoc. This is where the 2nd Ranger Battalion had to climb the cliffs to fight the Germans. Some friendly fire happened here as well. The American soldiers used German weapons because their guns were out of ammunition. The other American soldiers heard German guns and fired on their own soldiers. 8 men were killed before anyone knew what was happening. As you can see, the town of St. Mark-Lees hung a dummy dressed in paratrooper uniform by his parachute from the church in the middle of town. In real life, this man's name was John Steele. He actually landed on the back of the church on D-Day. He was a part of the 82nd Airborne. He pretended to be dead until the Germans realized he was alive. They captured him and took him to a POW, prisoner of war camp. He escaped later on. That is what made him famous. This is a Jewish concentration camp in Belgium called Fort Braindonk. 400 to 500 Jewish people were held there. They were worked to the bone, barely fed, slept on beds full of lice and maggots eating at their flesh. The pots they had to drink water out of had holes in them, the toilets were small and cramped, and they received daily beatings. The outside of the fort is covered in barbed wire. People were also tied to poles and shot or were hanged because the Germans didn't like them. This is a crazy experience, and I highly recommend. We stopped by the Belgian National War Museum in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. Very cool museum with history dating back to the 800s, and I recommend. We also stopped by the Trench of Death in Dixmude, Belgium. Very cool spot, and who doesn't like trenches? Very rich with history, and I highly recommend. This museum is called the Bastogne Barracks. It is located a few kilometers away from the town center. This museum holds the biggest collection of military equipment and vehicles I have ever seen. It was awesome. There are two main hangars full of things to look at. This place is amazing and I highly recommend.
And if they didn't restore a lot of stuff. And I know that they made peace quickly after the war, so it was good to see it.
You are now entering the Bastogne War Museum. This place is absolutely stunning. It had 4 narrators telling their stories and experiences of the Battle of Bastogne. These people included a young boy that lived in the area, a young woman who was a school teacher and was secretly in the Belgian resistance, a German soldier with plenty of experience because he had fought in Russia, and an American paratrooper that had fought in Normandy and in the Netherlands. But this museum was not just about the Battle of the Bulge. It was about the end of World War I to the end of World War II. It is very interesting and I highly recommend. This horizontal stripe was hand-painted by soldiers to signify their rank. For example, this stripe signifies that the soldier was an NCO or a non-commissioned officer, which means he was either a corporal or a sergeant. This next spot is called the Bois Jacques. It is a couple kilometers away from Bastogne. This is where Easy Company of the 101st Airborne from Banner Brothers actually were. The view overlooking the town of Foix was really cool. This place is amazing and the trees were awesome. I really like this spot, and say it with me, I highly recommend. This small but cool museum is called the Clairvaux Castle, Bastille du Ardennes. It was very small compared to other museums that I had been to, but was still very interesting. I highly recommend. This next spot is called the Bois Jacques. It is a couple kilometers away from Bastogne. This is where Easy Company of the 101st Airborne from Band of Brothers actually were. The view overlooking the town of Foix was really cool. This place is amazing and the trees were awesome. I really liked it here, and say it with me, I highly recommend. This small but cool museum is called the Clairvaux Castle, Bastille du Ardennes. It was very small compared to other museums I had been to, but it's still very, very interesting. Highly recommend. This cemetery is called the Luxembourg American Cemetery. It is located a few kilometers away from Luxembourg City. This is the cemetery that General George S. Patton was buried along with 5,076 other soldiers that were killed in the Battle of the Bulge. General Patton himself, though, was killed in a car accident. While we were there, a company of American Cavalry Unit was taking a tour with a historian. That was really cool to see. This place in general was really cool. This last spot is called the Casemates du Broc. It's located in the heart of Luxembourg City. These tunnels were used in medieval times all the way to World War II. In World War II, they were used to protect and hide 30,000 people from the Germans. These tunnels are carved right into the side of a mountain, and from them, you have a perfect view over the entire city. Hello. In conclusion, this trip was absolutely amazing. The sights from England and the planning of D-Day all the way to the Battle of the Bulge and the end of the war. I had so much fun during this trip, and I hope you guys had just as much fun watching it. Thank you so much. See you in the next one.